So yesterday, Justice Stephen Breyer announced that he would be leaving the Supreme Court at the end of the current term, but he really didn't announce it. It was just sort of announced for him, and apparently he was kind of ticked about all of this. There are multiple reports yesterday that he had planned on announcing this, but it sort of leaked before he was ready for it, according to Shannon Bream. According to Breitbart.com, many reports indicated that Breyer was surprised and caught off guard about the announcement. Neither Breyer nor the Supreme Court has issued a public announcement about his supposed retirement. The White House and President Biden have refused to comment on the news, which was first reported by CNBC. Biden said, "There's been no announcement from Justice Breyer. Let him make whatever statement he's going to make. I'll be happy to talk about it later." Upon rumors Biden may nominate Vice President Kamala Harris to the Supreme Court, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said she would not comment on any potential nominees. Here was Jen Psaki yesterday saying that she wouldn't answer if Kamala Harris might be continuing her giant ride upward based on failure. I've never seen someone fail up as much as Kamala Harris. And she's a failed attorney general. She failed upward into the Senate. She failed upward from the Senate into the vice presidency. And now there's talk she may fail upward from the vice presidency into the Supreme Court just so they can get rid of her. Like, she's so bad at VP. And the Democrats cannot have her as the nominee should Joe Biden go down. They're like, let's just stick that lady over at the Supreme Court. She'll be a reliable vote for anything that we need. And sure, she sucks at everything, but who cares about that? Here was Jen Psaki refusing to answer the question yesterday.
When you were asked about the vice president possibly being selected as a Supreme Court nominee, you said you're not going to speak to any considerations. Does that mean she is being considered?
Again, Peter, I'm not going to speak to the reports of a Supreme Court justice retirement that hasn't been announced.
So theoretically, would someone who's...
Theoretically. I do like that you preface it. I appreciate that.
Just wondering, hypothetically, theoretically, would someone who was an attorney general of a large state and who served with many key Senate votes be an attractive candidate to the president for an open Supreme Court seat?
I see what you did there, Peter. But the president has every intention, as he said before, of running for re-election, and for running for re-election with Vice President Harris on the ticket as his partner.
Okay, so of course, that's probably right. They're not going to nominate Kamala Harris. There are a few complicating factors. First of all, Kamala Harris is the tie-breaking vote. She would have to presumably resign from her seat as vice president of the United States in order to be considered for the Supreme Court. He'd have to select a new vice president. And at that point, that person would be the tiebreaker because she'd have to not vote on her own nomination. So that's really kind of ridiculous and insane. So Kamala Harris is not going to be the nominee. It is hilarious that the left was so nervous about the 2022 elections that they basically just bodily threw Stephen Breyer off the Supreme Court. So you remember that Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the notorious RBG, heroine to the masses, the person that the left worshipped. I mean, they made documentaries about her and they had votive candles of her, and she was the most important justice on the Supreme Court, despite the fact that she really wasn't all that important a justice in the grand scheme of things. She wrote very few extraordinarily important decisions over her tenure at the Supreme Court. She was just a reliable vote for the left. Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg made the crucial error of thinking that Hillary Clinton was going to win the 2016 election, and so she didn't step down despite some pressure to do so. And then Donald Trump won, and then Ruth Bader Ginsburg's seat was filled by Donald Trump, which meant that the court shifted from basically even to now a 6-3 Supreme Court because Donald Trump got 3 picks while he was president of the United States, and at least 2 of them were swings, right? One was a Ginsburg seat, and one was the seat for Justice Kennedy. So you'll remember that Ruth Bader Ginsburg died in September 2020 while Trump was president. She thought Hillary was going to be president, and Hillary wasn't. So that meant that Trump got to replace her. Democrats want to avoid that this time. Democrats also want to avoid the situation they had when Justice Scalia died, because Justice Scalia died while there was a Democratic president, but there was a Republican Senate. And what they were afraid of here is that Breyer would pass away or would leave while the Republicans controlled the Senate, and Republicans could just prevent a Democratic pick from taking the seat. So they basically just announced it for him. He's sitting over there in the corner, and he's like, yeah, I'll probably, go whenever. And they're like, you shut your face. You're leaving now, which is why he's kind of pissed off. According to NBC News, President Biden and Breyer are scheduled to appear together at the White House on Thursday as the Supreme Court justice is set to announce his retirement. Breyer is one of the 3 remaining liberal justices. His decision to retire after more than 27 years on the court allows Biden to appoint a successor who could serve for decades and in the short term maintain the current 6-3 split between conservative and liberal justices. Now, again, this is not a swing seat. Breyer's seat being filled by somebody on the left would just be a left seat being filled by somebody on the left. At 83, Breyer is the court's oldest member. Liberal activists have urged him for months to retire, while Democrats hold both the White House and the Senate. And he's been pretty annoyed by the pressure that he's been getting from the outside. apparently that pressure has been mounting over the course of months. There's an article from September 2021 from a site called ballsandstrikes.org called Bullying Stephen Breyer is Good, Actually. We need to throw this old man out of here. Get him the hell out of here before Ron DeSantis or Donald Trump becomes president. And at that point, it's going to be very, very difficult for us to replace a liberal with another liberal. And that's all they care about. Now, who is Joe Biden going to replace Stephen Breyer with? Well, we know the answer to this one because Joe Biden said it back during the campaign. During the campaign, Joe Biden kept pledging that every open position was going to violate federal civil rights law. He was just going to select a black woman for everything, for his vice president, for the Supreme Court justice, for dog catcher. Did not matter. It was going to be a black woman no matter what. Here was Joe Biden during the 2020 campaign saying that he would pick a black woman to fill the Supreme Court seat because, again, by the way, this violates federal civil rights law. There's no other area of American life where you could say, I want a white male for X seat. You couldn't say it. It's literally a violation of the Equal Protection Clause of the Constitution of the United States. You're not saying, as one factor among many, I want a woman who has the experiences of a black woman, right? First of all, that's a ridiculous assertion on its face because not all black women have the same experiences, but put that aside. Even if you use the multifactorial analysis that the Supreme Court has been fond of with regard to affirmative action programs at universities, as we talked about the other day on the show, even if you threw that aside, Biden didn't even say that. He just said, I want a black woman. Okay, there is no other area of American legal jurisprudence where you could say, I want a person of this specific race and this specific sex to fill this particular role, and that not be a violation of the Equal Protection Clause. Here was Joe Biden pledging to do it back in 2020.
I committed that if I'm elected president, have an opportunity to appoint someone to the courts, I'll appoint the first black woman to the courts. It's required that they have representation now. It's long overdue.
Okay, so that is an insane contention right off the top, right? I mean, and the fact that we all sort of accept this as rote is wild. That presidents of the United States can now just say things like that they can just go out there and be like, I want a person of this particular race and this particular sex, and it doesn't matter anything else. But this is the way that the left views the court, by the way. The left views the court as two things. One, a place to put people of particular races and particular sexes, and two, that person has to reliably vote for the left. Hey, this has nothing to do with qualifications. Now, some of the people who are being considered for the seat have the usual qualifications for a Supreme Court justice, namely an Ivy League school and a clerkship, maybe a few years as a judge. That sort of stuff is sort of de rigueur for the seat. But Democrats don't care about that. What they really care about is we must have black women. And not only must she be a black woman, she must vote reliably for the left. See, here's the thing. Democrats never miss on their picks. They never, ever miss on their picks, ever. And the reason Democrats never miss on their picks is because they just select people who are overt leftists. The right plays this game. It's this really stupid game where in their hopes of getting somebody through the Senate confirmation process, they pick somebody who's sort of a cipher. And they pick John Roberts, who's been on the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals for a little while, has never written a controversial decision, has never been at the eye of the hurricane, and so tends toward the pragmatist and the political, and they never just pick somebody who is overtly conservative, right? You never see the conservative movement or the Federalist Society or the President of the United States selecting somebody who is the lawyer for the National Right to Life Fund. And they never do this. Now, Ruth Bader Ginsburg was the actual lawyer for the National Organization for Women. Okay, Democrats do this, right? Thurgood Marshall was the lawyer for the NAACP. They will just go to an organization that is allied with them, and then they will say, who is your best lawyer? And then they will pick that person. They will elevate them to the Supreme Court. They don't make this mistake. They find somebody who has been through the wars on behalf of the left, and then they select that person for the Supreme Court. Or they just openly ask them things like, will you uphold Roe versus Wade? And that person will be like, sure. You never hear the right ask somebody, will you overturn Roe versus Wade? Which should be a litmus test. The left gets this right, and the right gets this wrong. The left selects justices based on what they will do. The right should select justices based on what they will do, not on the basis of political persuasion per se, but based on the reality that the Supreme Court has been a political body and has made political decisions that are wildly unconstitutional. It seems to me a legal litmus test whether a justice will vote to overturn Roe. If you will not vote to overturn Roe, you should not be sitting on the Supreme Court, certainly not as appointed by a Republican president of the United States. Roe versus Wade is wildly unconstitutional. It's insane. Roe versus Wade is a ridiculous decision on its face. And any justice who sort of is unwilling to say that openly should not be nominated to the Supreme Court of the United States by Republicans. The Republicans are always going for consensus. They're always looking for, we need 60 votes, we need 70 votes. Who cares? Who cares? First of all, Democrats don't give you the authority to do that anyway. Democrats will never, ever again allow a Republican president to select a justice and that justice gets through with 70 votes. It's not going to happen anymore. Every single Republican appointee is going to be selected with all Republican votes and maybe one or two Democratic votes. That's it. And so this ridiculous notion by Republicans that when they select somebody for the Supreme Court, they have to pick somebody who has wide support, it's ridiculous. Democrats don't make the same mistake. Democrats just assume that Republicans will admit their people to the Supreme Court so long as Democrats have the majority in the Senate. Many of them will just vote for it, and they'll go along to get along. And then they select people who are overtly left-wing. Democrats, when Joe Biden says he wants a black woman for the Supreme Court, it does not matter to Democrats whether that black woman is Ketanji Brown Jackson or whether it is Cardi B. It does not make any difference. One of those people has the normal resume qualifications. One of those people absolutely does not, but it does not matter. So long as Cardi B voted the right way, first of all, they would say that Cardi B is a genius, right? They would say that if you had questions about her qualifications, this made you a racist because this is the game the left loves to play. Okay, but in reality, they don't care. So long as they get their results-oriented jurisprudence, they're done. They're finished. Now, here's the difference between what the right would do on this and what the left would do. You could ask a potential right-wing justice, like a Clarence Thomas type. You could ask, should Roe versus Wade be overturned? And they say yes. And then you say, well, what should we do with regard to, for example, the Federal Civil Rights Act of 1964 and its violation of freedom of association? And you might get a bunch of different answers because there are a bunch of different answers on the right to these questions. There is no variation on the left. There's lockstep adherence to basic rules of interpretation on the left. And those rules of interpretation are, what would a normal elected Democrat do? We will do that thing. There is no differentiation on the left between what the Supreme Court does and what a legislature does. No differentiation whatsoever. Right? Where the left sits, all they care about is that a Supreme Court justice does what they want that justice to do. It does not matter whether that justice is being asked to wildly exceed their own authority. So that is why Joe Biden can say things like, I want a black lady. And that's why they can say that, because what they really mean is, and we all know this, they don't mean, I am looking for a person with the black female experience or a black female to fulfill to rectify discrimination in the past. They mean we want somebody who fulfills all of our political priors and happens to please a particular political constituency. So they can overtly discriminate against people, which is really an amazing shift. By the way, it's an amazing tonal shift in American politics. You wouldn't have heard Bill Clinton doing this in the 90s. You just wouldn't have. And here's the more amazing thing. If Joe Biden wanted to select a black woman, he doesn't even have to say it. He didn't have to say it in 2020. He could have just selected a black woman. He would have gotten the same credit. But here's the thing. If you're a politician like Joe Biden, you know that in order to please political constituencies, you have to overtly pledge to be a racist in advance. You have to say in advance, I will select a black woman so that black people supposedly, this is the way the left thinks about black voters, that they can be bought with something like that. And if you just say that, then you'll win their vote. And then you have to hold to the pledge. And this is how Kamala Harris ends up as vice president of the United States, despite being just a gas bag of terribleness. The battle for the culture is heating up. We here at the Daily Wire are making some big moves. So be sure to like, subscribe, ring that bell, because you're not going to want to miss a single moment.